Pale Terry, the space adventurer. Cosmic Extras. The receiver crackled, spit out some static mingled with coherent voices far away, then crackled again so loudly something inside it gave out. A puff of smoke wafted out from the receiver's speakers. Pale Terry glanced up from painting his little glass horses and kicked at the receiver, giving it an all-too-perceivable dent. It came to life for a sputtering moment, long enough for him to make out the words Code 31 mission for, shoot, that was a high code. Whatever this was, it was important. Astro. Terry called. Receivers jammed. The ship was silent except for the lower of the engines. Astro. Oh, goddammit. Terry dialed the comm machine to Astro Furry's room. Astro picked up, and the visor showed the mole rat with his reading glasses on, snout dug into the pages of a huge book. Waste of time, that, if you asked Terry. Sitting like that, Astro's absolute lack of fur and stout belly made him look like a bag of skin. Yes? Astro Furry said, extremely and infuriatingly calm. Terry spoke fast, receivers jammed. Very high code. I want money. Receivers jammed? Whatever you do not kick it, or punch it, or hurt it in any way. It's sensitive equipment. Terry glanced at the new dent. Sure. Come on. There's a mission, important, and I'm bored as hell, and I need money. Money. Money which would let him pay his debt, finally retire, and buy himself a house with space for a glass workshop where he could. Astro Furry sighed and turned off the comms. A door swooshed open somewhere in the cramped ship. Terry spun his body to set his old human head in an almost vertical position, yet, nonetheless, it floated away, bonking against the glass of his helmet, turning slowly slanted inside his helmet. Astro appeared in the cockpit, took one quick look at the receiver, and then proceeded to grab one of Pale Terry's little glass horses and throw it to the ground. Hey! What the hell was that for? The rat kept his cool. You must learn discipline, my young one. Strike my things, and I strike yours. I'm older than you. And the bloody receiver was on death row already. Terry knelt to pick up the shard of his beautiful horse. He could glue it back to shape. Probably. He opened a cabinet filled to the brim with cans of ultra-strong glue from Ganymede he had bought at a sale during their last stop in the Saturnian moons. Astro opened the receiver and began to tinker with it, then glanced at the cabinet. Would you please tell me why we have industrial quantities of industrial-level glue? It's perfect for glass. Duh. And it was on sale. It's perfect for glass and space stations and high-altitude skyscrapers, not figurines, he said, now struggling to keep his calm. And 2 cans would be enough to last you years. Yeah, but I just said it was on sale. Astro put down the receiver and sighed so deeply that it was as if he was releasing every soul from hell. You tire me. And all your punching my receiver broke this valve's holster. I just need to glue it on. Oh. Pale Terry leaned forward and cupped a hand to his previous head's ear. The dead head floated around in the helmet, so his hand was actually next to the neck. He listened through his robotic body's sensors anyway. I didn't quite catch that. Terry loved it when Astro's nagging turned against Astro himself. One, said Astro. Pale Terry frowned, which translated into his body going still. His current body wasn't exactly great at facial expressions. 2, Astro Furry continued. What are you doing? 2.5, the rat said, patience running out. Terry threw him an unopened can. By Jove, there you go. Thank you kindly, The rat said, oh so very wise and tranquil. Asshole. After tinkering with the receiver a while longer and spanking it once or twice, Astro managed to bring it to life. Its speakers were clear. Names are a pain in my hernia, never here to pick us up. If you ask me, the Federation must have emptied its coffers for another bank, and now we're back to using these poor bastards instead of the police. Hi there, my kind people, Astro said. Huh. Hi. We were picking up static, said the operator. I apologize, we were also picking up some solar static and code 31. Terry interrupted. What's happening? What's the reward? Where do we have to go? The operator laughed. Buckle up, you're going to Mars. The comm system pinged with a file being received. Hashtag project, Kawa Waste Corporate Malfeasance Investigation Number, redacted. Agents, registered rogue number 399145, Dr. Astrolius Ferndington, and number 32458420, X-Ranger Pale Terrace Smith. Urgency requirement, code 31, 0 to 39, ROM. Reason for mission Kawa Way is one of the biggest companies listed on the Martian Stock Exchange Superscript 1, which focuses on a product of the same name. The product is a cheap but high-quality synthetic meat Superscript 2, currently flooding Earth's market Superscript 3, crippling Earth's economy, citation needed, and the stocks of livestock megacorporations. There have been reports of redacted. Request. The Federation Bureau of Freelance Urgent Listings hereby requests the services of the agents cited above to infiltrate Kawa Waste main manufacturing plant. Discover the formula or manufacturing process of Kawa Waste synthetic meat. Hashtag the once red globe of Mars was blotched with green and blue from the seas and wildlife growing, as well as gray from countless factories. Terry's ticket to retirement was just below him. With a careful hand, Terry coated the inside of the suit he was making with glue and brought the cloth together. Gluing was so much easier than sewing. I'm finally going to leave this piece of crap, he said, and punched the wall of their ship. Oh, yes, of course you are, Astro said. Because you invest your money so wisely. I mean it. This is it for me. All the money that I'm gonna get is going straight to, what is money? Astro Furry interjected, thinking, brushing his whiskers. Have you ever thought about it? The story of how money came to be used is rather interesting if you ever take the time to read it. Astro toyed around with the ship's instruments, focusing its telescopes on the innocent-looking factory. It all started when, oh, shut it. Can't you be happy for once? It's an easy job, high rank, and pays well. Pays well, Astro corrected. And this is why you should listen to me more often, young Terry. What high-rank job I'm older than you. None. There's always more than meets the eye. Pale Terry glanced at the telescope panel, showing a bird's-eye view of the factory. The gray, naked Martians were all filtering in through the huge gates as a new shift began. Most of them wore colorful bracelets. Shouldn't we mingle with the crowd? Pale Terry asked. Astro glanced at the Martian suits Terry was crafting and frowned. The fewer Martians that see us, the better our chances of sneaking in and out are. Terry fell into his chair and sighed, disappointed in all his work and life and all he'd ever done. If you don't like the suits, just say so. I do like them. Astro turned around, concerned. I think you're an expert artisan. Really? Terry asked, suddenly hopeful. Astro took a slow and deep breath, let it out, and finally said, of course. He turned back to the panel and pointed at a couple of Martians rushing to the factory, running a little late. There's our cue. They just pass a card over a reader, but other than that, there's no added security. Now, where should we land? I vote on landing behind this hill, and Terry studied the terrain and quickly said, "Nope. Wrong. That's a damn horrible place. You're dumb as a rock." "Kind words are best at wrong," Terry went on. "That hill faces the river they get water from. That means they'll have someone operating the pumps, or at least guarding them. We should land under here." He pointed at a bridge on the road to the factory. "There might be cameras there, but no alarms. By the time someone decides to investigate, if they do, we'll be long gone." "That's actually smart. I knew you had it in you," Astro said. Terry turned back to the suits with a smile as wide as the Milky Way. He was almost done with them, except, damn, he cursed. "What?" Terry grabbed the leathery Martian suit skin by the head. The head was glued backward. #Astro Furry dressed up in his spacesuit and then put on the costume. There were times in which Terry missed having a regular body, but not having to go through the hurdles of putting on a spacesuit made him not regret his accident as much. Robot bodies could be handy, and he could make fun of Astro as he put on the suit. "A little help?" Astro said. Terry laughed. "I'm enjoying this way too much." A short walk took them to the factory, which was much bigger than it appeared from up above. The main warehouse only had 2 entrances, an enormous door on the front, and a series of small ports on the back for loading products into carrier ships. The noise of whirring machinery and the high-pitched buzz of lasers leaked outside. Terry and Astro went in, careful with their movements so as not to rip through the flimsy costumes. Apart from the card reader and a couple of cameras, no one was there to stop them from entering. The walls had bright strips of fluorescent paint at waist height, which seemed to run in all directions. While a Martian screamed at them, coming out of a corner with a tablet on his hand. "Shoot!" They had forgotten to turn the translators on. "Excuse me?" Terry asked, and the speakers on his body turned it into Martian. "You too. We need hands on the chemical producer over on Sector 7 asterisk, said the Martian, translated in real time. "Sure thing," Terry replied and kept on walking. "No, you bacteria scrotum gasoline," said the Martian. It didn't seem like the translator was working properly. "Why did you say cricket?" "Never mind, Sector 7 is that way. Go, go, go." The Martian pointed towards the heart of the factory. "IDU," Astro said in actual Martian. Terry's system translated it into coconuts. Astro took Terry's hand and they followed a strip of bright and harsh red paint. As they went, the Martian gave them a weird look, then turned back, touched a yellow strip, and walked away while keeping their hands on the strip. "I can't believe you didn't look up a single thing on Martians before landing," Astro said. "It's your fault for breaking my goddamned horsies. I had no time. You had it coming. Besides, I'm observant, and that makes up for it. Right? No. It really doesn't. It does. Martians can't see very well, can they?" Astro gestured at himself. "Do you think I'd have agreed with these suits if they did?" Pale Terry stopped. "What's wrong with the suits?" "Nothing," Astro answered at once. It was hard to read his expression when he had all that gray cloth over his faceplate. "They are very well made." "That's what I thought," Terry said. After a point, they began to pass through hundreds upon hundreds of Martians, all hurrying someplace. Each Martian had bracelets of bright lights with a color matching their job. Given the odd looks he and Astro drew, no bracelet must have meant something important. They sneaked into one sector after the other. One thing was for sure, Callaway wasn't simply making synthetic meat. Large machines mixed together vast amounts of yellow and green goo, which, after passing through rows and rows of conveyor belts and complicated-looking gadgets, turned into black dust. Parallel to this dust, burgers and steaks and beef were made, and only then were they mixed with the dust. That dust must be the flavor, Terry told Astro. But Astro was quiet and reflective. He was always reflective, but the quiet part made Terry feel jittery. Astro had a kind of sixth sense against weird stuff, and goo that turned into dust was definitely weird stuff. Terry's old Space Ranger instincts were starting to come to life. He recalled his personal and favorite mantra, which had, many times before, given him the key to solving the hardest cases: something that is wrong is not right. Astro hated the mantra. "You stupid bacteria scrotum gasoline," a Martian shouted, loud enough to make the liquid inside Terry's helmet vibrate, making his dead head swoosh around. Whatever the translator was picking up, it meant something terribly insulting, for all the Martians looked down and touched their breasts. Astro remarked that it was a sign of deep abashment. "This is unacceptable," that same Martian was saying. They wore no bracelet, and they had a tuft of black hair that very much looked like an afro wig. But Funko, another Martian, told them this was working just yesterday. "Oh, Crochet Cricket," the main Martian, Funko, said. "Just restarted. I have places to be. Coconuts." They turned around and stormed off into the east wing of the factory. "I think that was one of the scientists here," Astro said. "Why?" "The hair. Martians elect their smartest representatives by giving them hair," Astro explained. "That's stupid," Terry said. "No, it's cultural. Use your brain, Terry." "Can't," he replied. This Funko character passed his card over a reader, and high-security looking doors opened. Pale Terry and Astro Furry sprinted and went in just before they closed. Funko disappeared around a corner, and they followed. This part of the factory was mostly deserted, and so quiet that they had to activate their anti-gravity saws so as not to be heard by their footsteps. Then, suddenly, screams. Human screams. Not of pain, but of delight? What in the actual mother of all life was that? Astro muttered. They came before a long and wide corridor with cells on each side. At the end of the corridor was a lab, and its door was open. Martians in white coats moved around inside. Next to the door were a couple of hangars with those sleek coats. "Jackpot," Terry muttered. The cells were lined with people, regular humans, completely naked and high out of their minds. Most cells held either women or men, but some cells had both. The lab coats were entirely too small on Terry and Astro, restricting their arms and torso. Funko and some scientists were preparing a solution with some of that black dust. "I swear to Cricket," Funko was saying, "that if those bacteria scrotum gasoline messed up my formula, they'll pay for all the hours we have to shut down the factory to clean this up." Astro and Furry slowly sneaked close enough to be able to see what Funko was doing. Some Martians glanced at them, then back at Funko. So far, so good. Funko set the black powder on a white gel, which crystallized into a regular cookie. "Prepare a female specimen and a male specimen," he said. Two scientists rushed out of the lab and, a few seconds later, they told Funko everything was good. Terry and Astro followed the scientists, trying to keep themselves small so that the lab coats didn't look as small on them. Astro's suit was starting to get undone at the arm. "Shoot!" One of the cells now held a woman and a man built like a god. Good heavens, he was gorgeous. The two of them were slowly gravitating towards each other, still high, but also flirtatious. "Cookie time," Funko said in crystal clear English, breaking the cookie in half and setting it on a tray. The two humans seemed to be programmed to react to the command. Each turned to the tray, ate their halves of the cookie, and resumed what they were doing. Except, slowly, yet surely, the woman started to let go of the man, stepping away from him. The man, confused, went after her with an almost pleading expression on his face. The woman merely appeared neutral to the man. She was outright ignoring him. "You," Funko pointed at one of the scientists, "go inside." The Martian went in, and, at once, the woman went crazy, jumping on top of the Martian scientist and attempting to kiss him. "Okay, everything's working well," Funko said. "Working well," Terry muttered. "Someone go tell the scrotums that they can resume production," Funko continued. The scientists began to disperse back to the lab. Terry and Astro, however, stared at each other. Cowaway synthetic meat wasn't just meat. It was, somehow, making women attracted only to Martians. Terry's head, or, rather, his memory unit, held only one thought: he'd get a very nice reward for figuring this out. "You!" Funko suddenly pointed at Astro. More specifically, at the arm coming undone. "I apologize," Astro said, and his spacesuit translated it into Martian. "It's my prosthetic arm." Funko squinted. He stepped in closer and stared at Astro's eyes, which were simply holes in the suit. The Martian stepped to the side and stared right into Terry. Funko groaned so loud the liquid in pale Terry's helmet jostled again, making his head turn and bonk against the glass. Funko must have seen the head through the holes in the suit, for he suddenly yelled out, "Humans! Run!" Terry punched Funko a little too hard and discovered that, for some arcane, evolutionary reason, Martian heads were overly soft. Funko's head caved in like an overripe watermelon. The scientists in the lab watched, horrified, as their boss's head was deflated and fluorescent green brains spilled onto the floor. "Sorry," Terry said, then ran after Astro before 100 alarms began to blare all around them. Hashtag 1,000 angry Martians were spewing out of the factory, demanding blood. They got to the ship. Astro began to fire up buttons at once. Wait, Terry said. "What?" "I have an idea," Terry said, all too calmly. "We know enough to report back." "Let's get out, Terry. Your body might be immortal, but mine sure as hell isn't." Look at Astro, getting all mad and angry, Terry thought and snorted a little. "I have the perfect plan B. You just need to drop me on the factory's roof," Terry said. "Why?" "For Earth's sake, why, Terry? I think I have found a use for all that glue." Hashtag it turned out that Martians really couldn't see well. It took them some 10 minutes to simply find the ladders that would lead them up to the roof. Terry, meanwhile, cut up a hole just above the very advanced chemical vat thingy, unloaded all the glue from Ganymede, and then emptied the cans, one by one, into the vat. Finally, he covered the hole back up, then hoarded all the empty cans and loaded them back up on the ship. When the first Martian reached the roof, he said, "Oh, no! I am caught. I couldn't even begin my evil plan. I will now run before you can catch me." When he turned around, there were dozens of Martians a palm away from him. He shouldn't have taken as long. Damn. The Martians ganged up on him and jumped on top of him, screaming and thrashing and hitting him in the process. "Astro, Furry! Help! He screamed while the pile of Martians on top of him grew. Suddenly, he felt an incredible jab of heat and an immense roar. He turned on the smell sensors on his body and smelled the ship's engines. Astro was burning the Martians to a crisp. Terry rose from under a melted goo of fluorescent Martian insides and laughed loudly, pointing at the Martians, telling them to screw off and to leave Earth's women alone. The Martians stared on, traumatized by the soup of seared skin and organs that surrounded Terry. Terry's body was beginning to grow bright red as well. Terry glanced into his helmet and saw the liquid bubbling and boiling his dead head, which was, by now, red as a lobster. My head. Terry climbed aboard the ship. It then lifted up in an instant, burning a couple more Martians alive, was the first thing Astro said. Terry looked down at the factory, speckled with charred spots and bright green goo. At this rate, we'll be sued for a misdemeanor and not get paid at all. But Terry just laughed. Nah. They'll thank us. I don't think Callaway will survive for much longer. #project. Callaway's corporate malfeasance investigation number, redacted, end of mission report agents, registered rogue number 399145 Dr. Astrolius Ferndington and number 32458420 X-Ranger Pale Terrace Smith. Urgency requirement, previous, code 310-39, current, code 000-39, results, mission accomplished? Y/N, Y satisfactory results. Y/N observations. Black Small Square. The Federation Bureau of Freelance Urgent Listings has declared the above agent's job execution as both extremely satisfactory and unsatisfactory. Despite going beyond their request, they have caused unnecessary harm to Martian civilians, as well as thousands of dollars in property damage. Consequences of mission, if applied. Black Small Square, written by the subhead of the Internal Services Department. Oh yes, this is very much applied. Agent Astro Furry and Pale Terry not only incurred unnecessary risks to their own safety, but also caused a good percentage of our budget to go down the drain. And they caused, of course, Martian deaths, but thousands of dollars in property damage. Thousands. And for some reason, there are now reports of Callaway meat having to be surgically removed, a fact which this department suspects is directly correlated to these agents' actions. I will leave a snippet of an article from the Federation's journal down below. The consequences for these individuals will be a fine corresponding to 5% of all damage costs that the Martian government may yet push forward, as well as the cancellation of their reward. Due to a lack of mercenaries, their contracts will, however, not be terminated. Signed, Dr. Janet Williams. Attachments. Here's the promised attachment, taken from the Federation's journal of the current date. The number of people in the state of Minnesota who have needed emergency gastrointestinal surgery has more than doubled during this past week, and nearly all of these new cases have come after 0 to 2 days of consuming Callaway synthetic meat. Experts at the University of Minnesota Medical Center have come on record to describe how Callaway meat doesn't seem to digest at all, forming balls of goo that look like balls of glue, which stick to the inner intestinal wall, causing severe blockages and even hemorrhages in the gravest of cases. The FDA was already looking into Callaway's practices of manufacturing following reports of women who, after consuming their products, divorced their partners all over the Federation. The outro of Pale Terry, the space adventurer, faded out, and just in time. After countless seasons and episodes, Joe had finally finished rewatching the show up to the latest episode, Pale Terry versus the Eki Martians. Just in time, Mama, he said to his empty living room. Just in time to meet the producers of the biggest show in the Federation right now. Each season, the actor playing Pale Terry changed, and, finally, After applying every season for 10 years and going through a selection process that cost him his marriage and his mortgage, he was chosen. Chosen, Mama, can you believe it? How he missed the quiet days in which his mama and he would sit and watch the newest episode, popcorn, and lemonade within a hand's reach. And now, the Pale Terry and Astro Furry poster never looked so proud. Joe grabbed his jacket, keys, and wallet, gave his dark, freshly cut hair, eyebrows, and beard one last combing, and then went out the door in a happy dance. Hashtag they recognized him at once as he reached the Worldly Studios gates. Granted, there was an AI controlling the gates, but it still made him feel important. This was the start of a new life. The next time he drove in through these gates, he wouldn't be driving his beat-up Corolla, but some new fancy car. Warehouse number 6, the robot said as he passed the gates. Just over there. A mechanical arm pointed at a warehouse on the front line. Joe parked the car, took the deepest breath of his life, and entered. There was an enormous set. The Maelstrom, Pale Terry's spaceship, sat in a corner, and a terrain that looked like a Mars landscape filled a good portion of the warehouse. God, he wanted to cry. "I'm here, Mama," he muttered. A fat man with a stupidly long mustache got up and said, "Oi there. I'm Bob. You must know me." Joe cleared his throat and said, "Bob Weinstein-Minster? Damn right, I know you." The executive producer of the show was right there to greet him. This day was a dream. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Joe," Bob said, shaking hands. "Would you like to meet Pale Terry? I get to wear the suit already." "That's neat. If only his mama could see him now." Sure, he'd feel goofy with the robot suit on, but once his face was added in with CGI, he'd look like the Pale Terry he always imagined himself to be. "A suit?" Bob laughed. "No way. Pale Terry's here, and so's Astro Furry. Terry. Astro. Come here," he called. Pale Terry actors were one of the best protected people in the whole world, which made sense, given how ridiculously popular the show was. After a season, they were all given houses and private lives to live in peace, and whilst it aired, they kept all their public appearances to a minimum. To a minimum, meaning 0 appearances except for social media posts and the occasional live stream. Steps that sounded like tin cans crumpling echoed up in the warehouse, and 2 robots sauntered around the corner. One was tall and imposing, with an empty vat for its head and bulbous arms and legs, Pale Terry. The other was small and pink, with small crevices that acted as joints, Astro Furry. Were both of them robots? State-of-the-art AI, with state-of-the-art robotics, with a state-of-the-art producer. Bob said, a little too proudly. Now the infinite well of conspiracy theories and online forums collapsed. So, Pale Terry was a robot. That left a rather important question hanging. "What did you need me for, then?" Joe asked. Bob knocked on Pale Terry's helmet. It rang. "You think heads last a whole year?" "They do, but just barely. They take about a season to turn bad." "Oh, so you just use," Joe was going to say CGI, but he shut his mouth and glanced behind him as the door to that warehouse began to close. Security guards sauntered in from one side, as did a pair of doctors with syringes in their hands. It made sense now. Yup. Goddamn, Mama, I really can't seem to do anything right. Of course, Pale Terry actors were always recluses. What's more reclusive than decapitation and death? Joe could be many things, dense, stubborn, weak of character, but his mama had not raised a wuss. So Joe pushed Bob away with all his might, which wasn't that much to begin with, and sprinted off, trying to get to the door before it closed completely. A doctor stepped in front of him, syringe at the ready. Joe managed to evade the needle and punched the doctor in the mouth. A security guard tried to placate him, but Joe leaped and the guard fell on the floor. Come on, Joe, he thought. Survive for Mama. Tin cans crumpled fast behind him. He spared a glance and saw the tower that was Pale Terry running towards him. The robot wasn't that fast. Joe could outrun it. He could. A piercing pain in his leg, his foot failed, and he fell, rolling on the floor. Joe shook his leg and saw the pink shape of Astro Furry biting down on his calf. He shook and shook his leg, but the little rat wouldn't get off. Crumpling cans are so near. Joe began to punch the rat, but all he was doing was scraping his knuckles on the rat's tin hull. A shadow cast over him. Joe looked up at the headless Pale Terry, at the needle in its hand. Hashtag he hasn't picked up the phone in a few weeks, she said. He's just been busy, dear, he replied. You know Joe gets easily carried away. Besides, you've seen the pictures of him as Terry. Joe's living his and your sister's dreams. He's all good. Come on, Mama, the kid said from the living room. It's almost time. Going. The three of them sat on the couch, listening to the intro of Pale Terry, the space adventurer, then waited eagerly. The intro faded out, then the camera faded in, focusing on Pale Terry's hands, then arms, then shoulders, then the head. And floating inside that helmet, looking comically dead, was, "It's Uncle Joe," said the kid. Uncle Joe is famous. Well, damn, she said. My sister would be so proud if she saw her little boy on TV. Her little Joe, living the dream. Pale Terry threw the wrapper on the ground and went for another chocolate bar. He put one square of chocolate at a time in the taste chamber, and in less than a minute, the chocolate was all gone. Why couldn't he ever get anything right? Astro came into his room and gasped a little. He walked to Terry's bed, trying not to step on any wrappers, which was undoubtedly impossible. Come on, Terry, cheer up, Astro said. We'll fix it up. Terry sniffed. I thought that too, but I keep ruining everything. He threw the wrapper on the floor and went after yet another chocolate bar. You don't need to eat, Astro remarked. I know. But it feels good. I don't doubt that, but that chocolate cost me nearly $10 a bar. It's very good chocolate, you see. Terry's heart froze, and he looked at his wrapper-littered floor. Oh. That sobered him up in an instant. I can't pay you back. Astro sighed. That's okay. Terry sniffed, then felt that ugly pain in his chest, which was all simulated, but a human brain would behave like a human brain, and finally cried. I'm broke, Astro. Broke. I should be retired by now. You're 20 years away from the usual retirement age. But this is a profitable field. We are not profitable individuals, however, the rat said in a very wise voice, but not sounding all that wise. Besides, what good is money? What good would your retired life be? These are the questions you must ponder, my young one. I'm older than you. I'm aware. But Terry, listen to me, I've got a really good book that could easily explain all that I'm trying to. The Galestrom shook. Not violently, but hard enough to make them fear for the ship's integrity. The hell was that, Astro? Were we supposed to pass asteroids? Of course we were, Terry, because I never planned for that specific case when I set up a course, Astro retorted. They were headed to Proxima Centauri, and by now, They should be leaving the borders of the solar system. Astro got up and turned on the comms visor in Terry's bedroom, then brought up a map. What in the goddamned hell of Saturn's moons? Astro? You're scaring the circuits out of me. Terry's partner in crime rarely cursed. And damn well I should. We're in Mars's orbit. That's not possible. I saw Pluto just yesterday, Terry said and punched the button that raised his blinds. From the window, the rusty glow of Mars filled Terry's bedroom. What the F? I swear to God these goddamned Martians are getting on my goddamned patience. Terry snorted at how red the usually pink Astro was getting. Yeah. Bet you got a book for that, too. Astro and Terry inspected each inch of their ship's engines to make sure they hadn't been duped, as well as the internal circuits to verify nothing was smoking. Everything was as pristine as two mercenaries could get it to be. The moment Astro turned the boosters back on, they heard a siren through their receiver, warning to ship number 4490-969-3421, nicknamed Galestrom. You are not allowed to leave Martian space until you pay the standard toll as per the new legislation. Astro had calmed himself, receding to his usually serene demeanor. But now, oh boy, now he was losing his mind. His whiskers were trembling. He grabbed the receiver and screamed right into it. You listen to me, you goddamn gray bastards. We were here less than 3 weeks ago and there was no damn tax. Do you know who we work for? The Federation and one of their bureaus. You know what happens when you mess with us? We get damn mad. And do you know what happens when you Martians get folks like us mad? You blind squishy suckers get squished. So either let us go, or so help me God. Listen, sir, you have to. Astro slammed the off button on the receiver, cutting the connection. Pale Terry merely watched, amazed, and extremely entertained. Never had Astro gotten this worked up. The receiver pinged not a second later. Astro clawed at the receiver, punched it, then yelled, I told you bastards, code 26 for agent's number, said a human color in his cheeks, turning pale pink. Oh goodness, I apologize. What are the mission requirements? Something very bizarre, I'm afraid, the operator said, sounding so confused that Terry thought, for a moment, that he couldn't read. There are strong suspicions that the Martians cracked teletransport and are now using it to make people pay space taxes. And it seemed like you two were already on Mars. Pale Terry snorted, tried to hold his laughter, then sprawled out laughing. That's rather interesting, Astro said in a way that was much more like himself. I read an article just this week explaining how hard it'd be to. You should be receiving the request report now. Do you confirm the mission, or would you like to? We accept it, Astro said, so cut and dry and frigid that Terry suddenly missed him being angry. Oh, I accept it all right. I'm commanding this mission, Astro let Terry know as he put on his spacesuit. The Martian operators kept jabbering at the receiver even though Terry had told them they'd not be getting out of Martian orbit anytime soon. What's making you so darn worked up anyways? Terry asked. Sure, he had seen Astro angry one time or another, but this much. This was a first. Astro filled the breathers in his suit with pressurized air. I hate bullies and crooks. Astro, our job is all about being bullies and crooks. But always against either powerful or stupid people, oftentimes both. Always against someone who deserves it. Finding the key to teletransportation, something that could revolutionize the galaxy, and using it to make regular people pay a toll? AHHRRGGH makes me want to burn that planet to the ground. Now come on, Astro said and stepped into the airlock. Terry joined him, closed the door behind him, locked it tight, and then Astro opened the outer door. Astro pointed at a ship 12 minutes away by gas-propelled travel. There. That's their ship. Oh my God. Astro, am I going to get to see you get all badass? I promise I'll try reasoning with them first. He jumped off, floating, using the canisters in his hands to propel himself forward. I hope you don't reason for long, Terry replied and braced himself mentally for space. His dead head was a nuisance in 0G. It kept going off and bonking into the helmet to the point where he had to worry about the skull getting all mushy. And sure enough, as soon as he turned his propeller on and accelerated a little, his head struck the back of the helmet. You're going to build my head some suspension after this is over, you hear me, Astro? Aye aye. 11 minutes later, they made contact with the Martian ship. Terry thought Astro would knock and ask to get in, but the rat got his ray gun out and punctured a hole through the outer airlock. An alarm went off inside the ship. I like this angry Astro. Why can't you always be like this? Because we'll have to pay for damages later. This shut up Terry. But right now, I don't care. Astro kicked the airlock and went in through the circular hole. He welded the hole closed again and opened the inner airlock. Two confused Martians were wearing thick goggles capable of bettering their vision, but they were unarmed except for harmless tablets. Not the best decision on their behalf. Astro pointed his gun at them. So, when did this whole thing begin? The translator inside his spacesuit worked in real time. Just take what you want, said one of the Martians. I'm not here to rob you, okay? I just need some answers. So, when did this start? The Martians looked at one another and then replied, it started 15 Mars days ago. Please, don't hurt us. We know who you are. We'll do what you ask. Hold on, Terry said. You know who we are? One of the Martians touched their tablet and showed it to them. It held a mugshot of Astro and Terry. Terry's head was askew in the picture. Damn. We're famous in Mars, Astro, Terry said. I wouldn't be too happy about that, Astro said. Okay, since when do you have teletransportation? Teletransport, asked the Martians. How do you think all these ships ended up in your orbit? Terry asked. The Martians wiggled their knees. That's the same as shrugging, Astro remarked in a low voice through his and Terry's private channel. Now, you will tell me who is in charge of all this? Do you mean our superior? Above our rank is Dr. Astrolius and Ranger Pale. The receiver in the Martian ship bellowed suddenly. Step out of the ship and peacefully surrender. You are being arrested as terrorists and enemies of Mars. You damned bacteria scrotum gasoline, Astro said in that frigid tone of his. Oh boy, Terry murmured, excited. I could have tortured you, Astro explained. We are sorry, the Martians pleaded. Please don't kill us, please don't. Astro fired the ray gun, and the leftmost Martian burst like a can of soda left too long in the sun. Bright green innards went everywhere. The remaining Martian was still and quiet, then shook and emitted a high-pitched buzz. Terry knew enough about Martians to recognize panic. Slowly, Astro turned the gun on the other Martian. Would you kindly take us to wherever your center of operations is? You may start piloting there. Also, tell whoever is calling us that we're not here. The Martian kept shaking and buzzing. Terry, do your thing, Astro said. Oh yeah. Pale Terry cracked his knuckles, figuratively, of course, and advanced towards the Martian. Nothing like a couple of blows to bend the little alien to. The little Martian screamed, grabbed Pale Terry's arm, spun him with incredible strength, and threw him against Astro. They fell in a tangled heap. Terry shook his helmet to right his upside-down head. "You okay, Astro?" "I'll let you answer that one," he rasped. The Martian ran to the receiver. "They're here. They're gonna kill me. Come quick, Coconut." Terry helped Astro up and the two of them pointed their ray guns at the Martian. "There's only one scenario in which we won't kill you in the next 20 seconds. You got that?" The Martian nodded. "Where's your HQ?" "Phobos." "Mother Mars, it's on Pho." Astro pressed the trigger, and the Martian's skin melted off and popped, and all that was left were its bones, coated by a thick membrane of puce goo. Terry turned to the ship's controls. "Everything's in Martian," he yelped. "We are going to send an armed force if you don't surrender," the receiver said. "This is your last warning." "We're going to surrender," Astro said to the receiver in a defeated voice. Terry asked. "Hell no," was Astro's reply. "Terry, what are you? Human? Apart from that. Robot?" "Exactly. And what can anthropomorphic robotic systems do?" "Oh." Terry beamed. "Right. Real-time translation." Astro nodded wisely as if he hadn't just murdered two Martians. "Good. Now, tell me which lever says forward." Terry turned the translator embedded in his cameras on, then searched for the lever. "It's this one." "Thank you, young one." Astro punched the respective lever, and the ship lurched forward. Terry's dead head bonked hard against the helmet glass. "Hashtag I order you to stop," came the voice in the receiver. "Else we'll be forced to use lethal force." "And kill your two employees?" Astro said. "They're still alive." It turned out that Martian ships used top-of-the-line engines, but not top-of-the-line hulls. The ship was shaking and heating up so much that tens of red warnings were popping up all over the many screens. "Astro, do you know what you're doing?" Terry asked. "In life? Not often. Right now? Certainly not." The dark orange shade of Phobos was already large on the horizon, and yet they were not slowing down. The ship's radar blared with something the size of a planet in front of it. Phobos was not that big. That was odd. Astro had his brows made into a V. That's odd. Just as soon as it came, the radar emptied and showed nothing. Astro turned on the telescope in his suit and pointed it at Phobos. A minute later, it happened again. The radar told them something bigger than a planet was right in front of the ship. "Something is messing with the fluctuation sensors," Astro said, and he pointed at the screen on his wrist. It showed a picture he had just taken of a gigantic antenna connected to weird machinery. This was shaking when the radar lost its mind. "So is that whatever's doing the teletransport?" Astro completed. "Very much probably." He veered the ship toward the antenna. Astro?" "Yes, my young one? Are you going to destroy it with this ship?" "I plan to, yes." "And aren't we on the ship?" "I had wagered that, yes." "Then how will we, not die?" Terry asked. "I was pondering that at the moment," he said calmly. The receiver began anew. "If you don't stop right this moment," Astro shot the receiver, melting the metal and electronics into one congruous mass that smelled too much like ozone and mercury. "Please, never let me get on your bad side," Terry said. "You've been too close more times than you'd think." Anyhow, here's what we'll do. #1, said Astro. 2, said Terry. 3, they said together, then jumped out of the ship. They used the propellers and the Martian spacesuits together with their own, but even that was barely enough to counteract the momentum they carried from the ship. While struggling not to begin spiraling into outer space, Terry laughed at how beautiful it'd be to see the ship ramming into the antenna. But space and time suddenly wavered like a drop of water falling in a cup. Then, as if by magic, the ship vanished and reappeared behind Phobos. The bacteria scrotum gasoline had used the damned antenna. "Hey!" Terry shouted. "That's cheating." And Phobos's ground was fast approaching. "Brace yourself," Astro said. They pointed all their gas propellers against the ground, and still, the impact was so strong that Terry's head smacked against the helmet glass and Terry saw it had split skin. "My face," he cried. His face had retained the same exact, dead expression. The gravity on Phobos was so low that Astro and him simply bounced back up into the air, but a blast of gas brought them back down. They fell again, raising a heap of dust into the air. "You alive?" Terry asked. Terry wasn't prepared for the reply. "I'm going to kill everyone on this moon and make their mothers watch." "By Jove, Astro. Calm down." But Astro was already up and running, not minding the security forces exiting the ship that was following them, nor the countless Martians heading towards them. Astro?" Astro stopped, saw all those gray Martians coming for them, emitting their high-pitched buzzing, and said, "Give me your ray gun." 2 ray guns aren't going to bring down dozens of Martians. "Oh yes, they are," Astro said. He then proceeded to open the 2 guns by plying them with a rock, attach their canisters, open the Martian spacesuits, and directly connect their batteries to the ray guns. All this in less than 2 minutes. I know Martian batteries are powerful, so this will be a first for me. I hope this works. And if it doesn't? Terry asked. I'll have to find a way to live without hands. Astro got on one knee and aimed. Terry got behind Astro and held him by the shoulders to steady him. Astro pulled the trigger, and a bright white ray as thick as pale Terry's legs beamed out of the altered gun. The Martians the ray struck burst like overripe tomatoes injected with pressurized air, their insides hovering in the 0G, hitting their companions who could all but look on, horrified. Then, the Martians began to shoot. A bullet ricocheted against Terry's helmet. He threw himself on the floor. Kill those ugly bastards, Astro. Screw your taxes. Astro roared as he pressed the trigger and spun, bursting so many of the Martians that the rest of them laid down their weapons and ran before the ray hit them. The white ray flickered, then stopped. The ray guns were shining red hot. Terry stared at the guns. They were vibrating and getting hotter by the second. I messed with the gun's cores too much. Is that gonna explode? Astro nodded, face blank. Explode like a little or a lot, little one. A real lot. These cores are usually very stable, but I kind of went a little overboard. Terry looked around at the half-burnt and burst Martians that surrounded them. Yeah, a little overboard. The teleportation antenna loomed over the horizon. A light bulb turned on inside Terry's mind. That's it, he said. He took the ray guns, wrapped them in the Martian suits, and told Astro, "You've got 20 seconds to make those propellers stay on indefinitely." Astro bent down, did some of his technician magic, and suddenly the spacesuits sped up towards the antenna, the ray gun strapped to them. "We should run," Astro said. Yeah, that's probably a good. An explosion shook the entire moon, a column of pure white fire rising where the antenna was moments before. Almost out of instinct, they began to sprint away. As Terry ran and ran, grabbing Astro because Terry's body didn't depend on stamina while Astro's did, his thoughts turned not to fear of getting hit with debris, but to just how much his debt would grow. He'd never get to retire, would he? The advertisement jingle sounded from his living room. Did Timmy really think Kevin didn't know what he was doing? It was a little worrisome how limited his son was sometimes. Timmy, come on. The toast is getting cold. Be your favorite superhero, said the overeager narrator in the advertisement. Kevin was full of that damn song up to the tips of his ever-receding hair. You are now Pale Terry. Punch a Martian in the face. And the intro to Pale Terry, the space adventurer, played. Kevin knew the sequence it should be showing now. After all, he had played the part of the Martian that Pale Terry had punched oh so comically. Damned robot. His ribs were still bruised. Timmy came into the kitchen, running, with the version of the Pale Terry toy preceding the one launching now, to which event Kevin should have been on the way by now. Timmy's toy was just a plastic doll with a helmet full of water and a low-quality plastic head inside. Thrilling. The new version would project kids' faces inside Pale Terry's head, and everyone was losing their damned minds. By Jove, he'd have to hear kids screaming and giggling all day today. And he'd have to deal with the Terrybot all day. Oh, and Bob. Leeching Bob, not even admitting that the Terrybot was the actual Pale Terry. Someone kill me now, Kevin begged in his mind. Good luck today, Dad, Timmy said, flexing the word today a little too much. Kevin couldn't help but smile. Timmy knew he'd try to get him one of the new Pale Terry toys today at the launch party. Thank you, son. Now, finish that toast and put your dishes in the sink. I should arrive late today, okay? Okay, Timmy said, all chirpy. As Kevin left, he heard Timmy restarting the Pale Terry advertisement. Hashtag the toy store, simply called Mega Toys, was as big as some 6 blocks even without taking the parking lot into account, which was full by the time Kevin got there. Thankfully, Bob's team had left a parking space for him. Not so thankfully, it was right next to a leaky dumpster. Delightful. There was a massive crowd of reporters and regular people with their kids, hoping to get one of the toys before they ran out and snap a picture with Pale Terry and Astro Furry. At least no one wanted to get a picture with the Martian guy. Mustering the same strength of will as a Roman soldier singing for his motherland, Kevin got out of the car and put on the Martian suit. He was already sweating. This would be a great day. The things he did for Timmy. Bob was the first to greet him as soon as he entered through the back door. Hey, Kev. Just in time. We've got a special number for you. Oh no. So, you're not going to stand next to Terry or Astro. Okay? You are going to do a surprise attack. As long as Terry agrees, that's fine by me, Kevin said. But Bob clapped his hands. That's the best part. Terry can be quite a stinky actor. It's best if you really surprise him. He didn't like where this was going. You want me to pretend to actually attack that hunk of metal? That didn't sound safe. Bob slapped him on the shoulders. You got it. Yeah, I don't think that is very safe, boss. Without a hint of hesitation and without losing his smile, Bob said, no problem, you're fired. Shoot. Forget it, I'll do it. All right, Timmy. As long as you get me one of the Pale Terry toys as a bonus for my kid. Can't you just buy one? Bob asked. Kevin looked at Bob and snorted. You don't know how much you pay me, do you? Bob seemed to take this into account. After a while, he replied, I think I can safely assert that I pay you with money. Hashtag the line to get an autograph and a picture with Terry and Astro was big enough to be measured in kilometers. Bob was probably making a fortune just by sitting there, while Kevin had to wear this reeking suit to get peanuts and pennies. Pale Terry, during filming, was usually programmed to do very specific actions. Even so, his punches were heavy and oftentimes left Kevin with severe bruises. Once, Terry even cracked his arm. Yet, today, Terry seemed completely fluid, almost human-like. He wasn't being controlled. The robot was in total AI autopilot mode. Bob suddenly turned his head in Kevin's direction and nodded. Kevin sighed. It was showtime. He grabbed the fake gun and counted to 3, then jumped out from the middle of some boxes of expensive drones. Kevin spoke in a Martian accent, "You bacteria scrotum gasoline." The crowd gasped. He raised his gun and pointed it at Pale Terry. The crowd gasped louder. "I will get revenge for my people, get him," the Astro furry robot screamed. Though the adults just looked on, confused, an alarming majority of the children began to screech and point at Kevin. Would this be his end? Killed by a murderous wave of little kids? Then, crumpling cans, just behind him. Pale Terry was heading straight at him. A little too quickly. He was not slowing down. Shoot, should he run? It's a robot, Kevin thought. It should have safeties in place. There was no reason to worry. You dare face me, Pale Terry? He raised his gun again. Prepare to GUHG. Pale Terry grabbed his neck, squeezed with the strength of a mechanical presser, and raised Kevin up. Kevin couldn't breathe. His neck was pure agony, as if his spine was being cut in two. The weight of his entire body pressing his neck down felt like molten lava running up and down his brain. Kevin twisted his feet and tried to croak for help, but no waft of air could pass through his throat. He clawed at Pale Terry's hands until his nails chipped, but the robot wouldn't budge. The crowd was roaring, laughing, chanting, "Pale Terry! Pale Terry!" Kevin caught Bob through the side of his eye. The producer was motioning to a random guy with a computer in his lap to cut it out, but the guy on the computer was just staring at the computer screen, confused. Bob went on to shrug and settle in his chair to watch Kevin die, together with kilometers worth of people. His vision darkened at the edges, and his thoughts converged into an incoherent mantra of Pale Terry. Pale Terry, and into that impassive, headless robot, mindlessly taking the life out of Kevin, mistaking him for a Martian because, inside his algorithm's mind, he really was Pale Terry, out in space, battling the evildoers from Mars. Kevin thought back to Timmy, to the kid waiting and never being told the truth. Kevin went still. Hashtag Timmy decided to surprise his dad. He'd be so happy. After catching 2 buses on his own, he got to the mega toy store pretty early. But he wasn't planning on it being such a bore. Hours and hours and hours in a queue. And where was his dad? Timmy saw no one in a Martian suit. "You bacteria scrotum gasoline," someone shouted in a Martian accent. Dad's voice. Dad. Timmy thought. Then Pale Terry was running at him and grabbed him by the neck while everyone laughed. Dad. Timmy called. Was this part of his job? Dad squirmed and clawed at Pale Terry's hand. Finally, he went still. Dad? Timmy called, but his weak voice was lost in all that uproar. A couple of security guards picked his dad up and carried him away. Timmy was still as a rock. Still. Day faded into night. Some nice lady escorted him out of the store and left him in the parking lot. A bus with a familiar number appeared. Timmy went in. When he came to, he was home. His father wasn't. A while later, there were knocks on his door. He opened it. A policeman. "Timothy Anderson?" the policeman asked. Timmy just looked at him, lacking the strength to either nod or speak. The policeman took this as confirmation of his identity. "I'm afraid your father has passed away in a car accident this afternoon." Timmy nodded, shut the door, and sat on the living room floor, staring at the dismembered pale Terry toy until the sun rose again.